Hey there, Kelly. The UN Security Council went into emergency session this morning to discuss the U.S. military action in Venezuela over the weekend. And so we're getting some fresh reactions from world leaders. Venezuela's UN envoy told the body that the country's institutions are functioning normally today, that the constitutional order has been preserved there, and that the state is exercising effective control over its territory. Now, separately, Turkey's leader, Recep Erdogan, said that he told President Trump in a phone call that, quote, Venezuela must not be dragged into chaos, and said Turkey will continue to stand with the people of Venezuela. And finally, multiple oil companies have told CNBC's Brian Sullivan that they have no plans to enter Venezuela. Now, that's interesting because you heard the president say over the weekend that U.S. oil companies would be expected to go into Venezuela and spend the billions of dollars needed to reconstitute oil production capacity there. Apparently, that process has not started just yet. We'll wait and see if the White House has any communication with those oil executives in the days and weeks to come. Kelly, back over to you.
I mean, what other response should we expect, I should say, from the White House? Maduro, as Contessa will elaborate on in just a moment, did plead not guilty. I think he said something to the effect of, I'm a decent or honest man. And so they still have to sell the American public on kind of the rationale behind all of this and give us a sense of what's to come now.
Well, there's a lot of good questions around that. I mean, first of all, what's to come in Venezuela? The vice president, Rodriguez, is somebody who was defiant over the weekend, calling for proof of life of Nicolas Maduro in the immediate aftermath of the strike. Later through the weekend, she became a little bit more conciliatory toward the United States. She was sworn in formally as the president there. So the big open question is, can the U.S. government sort of co-opt the remnants of the Maduro regime in Venezuela and sort of pressure them to do what the U.S. wants, even without sort of a formal takeover of the country in any legal way? That seems to be the Trump administration strategy here. And then, Kelly, the other big questions are, the president was talking very aggressively about Cuba and Greenland last night on Air Force One as he came back to the White House after his 2 weeks in Florida. He said on Cuba, he said he thinks that country is poised to fall because it was dependent on Venezuelan oil to prop up the economy. That might be gone now. And so the big question is, what happens to the Cuban government in the wake of all this? And on Greenland, the president said, I'll talk to you about it more specifically in 20 days. But he said the United States does need Greenland for U.S. national security purposes. So one of the big questions there is, does the president have any designs on the nation of Greenland, and how would the European Union and NATO react to any moves by the U.S. there? So some big open questions geopolitically here at this hour, Kelly.
And I can tell you traders are busy trying to game out what the odds are of, action on any of those fronts. And then if so, what would be the preceding investments or, moves that they could position for one way or the other. So that speculation is apace. Eamon, thanks. Eamon Javers.